Muriel, it was the lowest point ever, because as I flew back, I felt two different things, to be direct. One, in a complete victim state, victim mentality. I felt lost. I felt powerless, like I had zero choice, zero. And on the plane ride back, it flipped into complete and utter anger. And I threw a tantrum. How dare they? They did not give me any support, no direction. They didn't even explain how to open a bank. And I got criticized for doing that wrong. So I did this flip-flop in this blame game between anger, frustration, and complete and utter victim state, which is when you're just lost. You're just absolutely lost.
Have you ever felt like that? Powerless, lost, and angry? I know I did many times as a CEO. And I still do sometimes today as an entrepreneur. So how do you shift from feeling powerless to feeling empowered? And that's what Tina Frey will talk about in today's podcast. Digitalization was already fundamentally transforming organizations, teams, and their leaders. But the pandemic accelerated this transformation and complexified things. Working from home, the lack of boundaries, the disconnection, the increased workload, the increased time spent in virtual meetings, the anxiety of going back to the office. But also more time spent with family, less traffic jams, more exercising. And so a lot of us are rearranging our priorities because we've been in touch with our mortality and fragility. Teams have been impacted heavily as well, and the hybrid model will probably be the new way of working. So leaders need to adapt to this new reality to get the best out of people and from their teams. So we are organizing a free 2-part webinar series on how COVID is impacting the people and leaders, that is part 1, and how it is impacting the teams, part 2. So if you want to participate, just go to keyleader.com/events or to the show notes of this episode. And if you think you can go back to normal, think again. Because the pandemic is accelerating the paradigm shift of our society. And you choose if you want to be part of the bright future or hold on to the crumbling past. So go to keyleader.com/events to subscribe to our webinar. Now back to our episode. Hello, Tina. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. So could you tell us a little bit who you are and maybe also a little bit about your origin story of when you started the company that you are still working in now?
So after school, I started at a very small radio station, which was fantastic because they took advantage of me completely. They had me do everything for no money. But I was too stupid to know any better, thank God. So I did it all, and I learned a lot about me and how business works, etc. From there, went to HBO and was responsible for training the dealerships, the cable stations on how to sell HBO. I did not know that adult learning was a path when I started there. Somebody thankfully tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you'd be good at this." And I said, what is training? What is learning and development? I had no idea. So I went down that path and really understood adult learning and fell in love with it. From there, I went to Volkswagen. Again, I got tapped, angels everywhere. And I worked with dealers on, again, leadership, product training, human resources, back-end training, et cetera, et cetera. From there, I went to BMW. And within BMW, not only did I work with the product and the dealers, I also ultimately was able to work within human resources. And that part of the journey, going from learning and development and adult learning and training, et cetera, into this more philosophized support, really shifted how I showed up and taught me the art of giving feedback, and really how critical it is for an organization to be successful, you have to put people first. That is your entire obligation as a leader. So I'm so thankful for that accidental shift into human resources. And it was then that I got the tap to start the Retail Performance Company. Now, the Retail Performance Company, or RPC, is a 50-50 joint venture with the BMW Group. We're a consultancy. We're pretty special. We're all about performance. We offer people solutions to support organizational blocks. And when they asked me, typical Tina, I ready, fire, aim. I just said yes. The question mark, Murielle, was still hanging in the air. Would you like to do this? And I said yes without researching one thing. And the next thing you know, 8 years ago, I'm launching this international company in the United States. So the question you asked was about that particular, and that's where I am today here at RPC. And the question you asked is what happened there, that launch. And that was arguably the most challenging and most difficult and the lowest part of my career. Because yes, it was exciting for 20 minutes. And then the reality set in that I had no idea what I was doing. How do you start a company by yourself as an LLC that is a joint venture, not your fund, all of the questions. So as the story goes, I still was half excited, half nervous, whatnot. And within my first days, I was told, well, you have to be in Germany in 10 more days with the complete strategy on how you not only will launch this company, but this company will be successful here in the United States. I had never written a strategy before, not at that magnitude. So of course, I Google strategy, right? So I put everything together and there are sticky notes and whatnot, and I get on the plane and I fly across the pond and I meet all of these German leaders who are just the stereotypical tall and brilliant and all. And I walk into the room with my clickety-clack PowerPoint and present my ideas. Still terrified, not really believing in myself, not understanding all of the business acumen and all the things. And at the end, I said, gentlemen, wouldn't you agree that this is the best path for the United States? And I was greeted with no. And I was blown away. And there wasn't a no, but let us help you, or a no, but hey, we have a different idea, or a no, but let's talk about it. It was a no. And in my memory, the CFO at the time, and there were 4 gentlemen in the room, looked at my boss, the president of our office who hired me, didn't say a word, but in my head, what he said was, what were you thinking? She can't do this. And in that moment, I agreed. And I was completely lost. So long story short,
and how did you feel? How did you feel inside also?
Murielle, it was the lowest point ever, because as I flew back, I felt 2 different things, to be direct. One, in a complete victim state, victim mentality. I felt lost. I felt powerless, like I had zero choice, zero. And on the plane ride back, it flipped into complete and utter anger. And I threw a tantrum. Mm-hmm. How dare they? They did not give me any support, no direction. They didn't even explain how to open a bank. And I got criticized for doing that wrong. So I did this flip-flop in this blame game between anger, frustration, and complete and utter victim state, which is when you're just lost. You're just absolutely lost. And so I took all of that. And I'll be honest with you, I tried a couple more things because that was my job. And it within the world of BMW, I was being validated by others, and people whom I had known for a decade would say, this is never going to work. Tina, do you have a plan B? That was said to me by a leader within the organization. I hope you have a plan B. And it's not their fault. They were being realistic. They were looking at the environment, the culture, all the things, but I believed them. So what I did was I decided that I did have a choice. I could quit. So I found myself writing my resignation speech, and I got my boss on the phone and I said, wouldn't you agree, sir, that it's best for the company if I go back to BMW? Actually, I have an idea of who can take my place. And he, God bless his soul, said, yeah, Tina, you are funny. No, I don't accept. That's a horrible German accent. I apologize to you and everyone. I mean, that was terrible. But he said, no. Take the weekend, you'll be fine. I'll talk to you on Monday. And I looked around and I said, what? So he removed my choice to leave And I had no, in my head, the consequence was to be successful. So it was in that moment that I shifted my perspective and I said, we're going to figure this out. And I just.
Do you remember first, because you tell a lot about how you felt, the stories you were telling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you maybe remember also how you felt in your body?
Oh, that is a fabulous question. I do. And interestingly enough, I process everything physically. And that is and I don't know if this happens for you, and I'm sure those of you watching and listening, trust your body, right? Trust. And I remember when I made the decision to quit, I did have I had a reaction, like I had an out, right? However, there was something still, even when I said the words to him on the phone, I was cluttered, they weren't clear. And I knew, and it was a deep knowing, this is not right. That moment, now I have to be honest with you, I was sitting in my house. And so this is years ago, remember, when I called him. So I wasn't in the office, I called him from home and the whole thing. And I remember hanging up. I like how I did this with my hand as if it was a real phone from 1980. And I went, so there was a breath. It was fast, but it was a breath. When a choice is made and it's the correct decision, I shouldn't say right, but correct decision for you, your body will tell you. And there is proof behind this. I'm sure you know this. There's scientific proof. The question is, do you listen to it? People call it gut and intuition. And really, it's the mind-body connection coming together. I truly believe that. So I did have an outward like that. And then I just got to work after that. And I don't know that it was a conscious awareness at that time, I'll be honest with you, because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. However, I definitely had a wonderful, okay, well, this is it. This is my new reality. Let's go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm asking this because often, but we've always been successful, and probably you have always had a very successful career and student time, and then you have a even bigger challenge, and you have the feeling that you might fail, and that's often very uncomfortable in our body. So we feel all kind of things. For me, for instance, it's almost always like a vice is compressing my chest, and I want to escape it, and escape it by also having these ideas of I'm going to quit or I'm going to stop, and that's why I'm asking. And it's only because we want to escape the physical sensations we have in our body.
Agreed. And the irony of what you're saying is when we choose to remain in that victim state, it's more physically taxing than even choosing to leave it or to shift your perspective around it or to confront it or to accept it. So when you say in that blame game, it is more, that's where you're swallowing. That's when you gain weight. I'm pointing to myself, right? That's when because you're holding on to this, quite frankly, negative emotional-esque feeling, right? So that's very interesting and a really critical point for all leaders to understand that when you do what's right and you make the right choice and you confront the thing, and I know you mentioned feedback, it's right, then we're able to release and move through it. It's the fear that holds us back.
Yeah, but also sometimes when we just accept the feeling in our body, when we accept that feeling in our body, that's where we get the strength to move forward despite feeling. And when we realize that I'm still going to be alive, I'm still surviving despite this feeling, and that's when it goes away.
What you're describing too, in my experience, and I'm curious to know if you've experienced working with so many leaders also, some leaders feel like the processing of the physical component is a little foo-foo, is a little too warm and fuzzy, is a little, oh, stop it, please. They just want to move on. And of the C-suite and the executives and these real high-powered men and women with whom I've worked, they discharge what we're talking about. And as you know, coaching goes deep. You're asking the big, fat, hairy questions that a human isn't asking him or herself. and it can be painful. And it's funny because it's even more challenging to do that kind of deep work, to put the mirror up to yourself and acknowledge I'm feeling something, and that I'm feeling it physically because I am feeling it emotionally. And again, people do not want to go there because they think it's not, what is the word? It's not mature. It is not executive-esque. It's not
rational.
This is business. It's not professional. Exactly. When it, quite frankly, is the hardest work that an executive could do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's true that I still meet traditional leaders who view that as woo-woo.
Mm-hmm.
But I meet more and more leaders that realize that just putting more pressure on people or working harder is simply not possible anymore. So they have to go another way, and that other way is working differently, and changing your habits and behaviors is going into your emotions and your body, because
Mm-hmm.
everything is conditioned there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a skill set. It takes time and effort and work to really be able to, air quote, hear yourself.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And I work on it every day. I'm not there 100%. I know it's happening now, but it took conscious work. And again, the path is long. But the start is the start. And that's massive, to get some of these, executives to just stop and go, I think there's something to this. Let me listen to myself. Let me shift a little bit. Again, shift that perspective. And again, ironically, some of them are swimming in victim state and in that blame game, and they don't want to look at it around this topic itself.
Yeah.
So the only way to elevate is to really shift and start to change it.
Yeah, and to go inside and to watch yourself inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe we can shift into that topic, because you're a specialist, and you have a great talk about I don't have a choice. And I meet so many leaders who tell me I don't have a choice, or I don't have the power to, or people that think that you have to be the CEO, and when you're the CEO, then you will have a choice. But then you are the CEO and you still have shareholders or a board. And so this I don't have a choice, that is limiting so many people and keeping them small. How do you help leaders with that feeling that I don't have a choice, or I don't have the power?
The story I told earlier was the catalyst for this conversation, because I felt I had no choice. I have no choice. I have to quit. I have no choice. And that was a lie. You always have a choice when you hit the roadblock, the obstacle. As a matter of fact, you have 5, which we reviewed. And to your point, I see it every day. Tina, I don't have a choice. The purchasing process here, it just stinks. I can't wait. Tina, I don't have a choice. My computer doesn't have it. No, that's not. Actually, you have 5. Now, you might not like the consequence of one of these 5 choices, but you always have 5. So one of the choices is to remain a victim to it, is to choose to remain in that. And do not argue. It is a choice. It is a subconscious choice to remain in that victim state. Another choice is to accept it. Now, acceptance sounds so easy. Oh, I'll just accept it. But we all have that friend for whom we've asked the question, hey, are you over it? And they go, oh yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And you know full well that person has not accepted. Acceptance means you've forgiven, that you have legitimately moved on. And if somebody brings up the topic, you do oh yeah, remember that? And then you put it away. Now, that doesn't mean the lesson was forgotten, but it was forgiven and you were accepted, and then you moved on. Another choice, so victim, remain a victim to it, accept. Another choice is to shift your perspective around it. Now, shifting your perspective around something is ridiculously hard. It's something, listen, we're humans. And when we feel something, which is it's our superpower, right? When we feel, and don't argue with me, any business people out there, all of us, it's emotion, feeling, we feel stuff, right? So when you feel it, it's hard to be able to say, okay, stop. What's going on in this situation? What's going on for the other person? And then to shift. I was once told that I was approaching a business matter in too much of a childlike way, for which I was quite frankly, pissed and felt all of the things. And it took me quite some time to be able to shift my perspective and say, so that leader was giving me that feedback actually to help me. Because in this environment that I was in at the time, that was frowned upon. My behavior was, even though I knew it was working and I was teaching and all the things, right? But it took me to stop and go, okay, what's going on for him? And when I shifted my perspective, I was able to accept. So those are 3 choices. Choice 4 is to change it. So in that example I just gave, I shifted my perspective. Probably within that minute, I accepted that leader for who he is. And then I went about changing how I approached something in his purview so I can be seen a certain way. So again, all choices. So these are the 5 choices. So to remain a victim to it. And again, in my story initially, I was a massive victim. I was in the blame game. It was that my boss's fault for not setting me up. I was able to shift my perspective and say, okay, what's really going on? Can I make this a success? I accepted the situation. I went about changing it to the point where we are now a successful entity here in the United States. I could have left it, but thankfully my boss took that decision off the table. So within those 5 choices, we always have one when we hit the roadblock. Oh, you don't understand. My boss will never give me a raise. Oh, you don't understand my marriage. He's just like that. Or she just treats me, or whatever the thing is.
Or the finances. I have to stay in this job or in this marriage, or for the finances. Yeah,
that is a big one. A really good example. Right now, you don't have a choice. I can't go anywhere else. I have to stay here. Do you? Let's walk through the choices. All right. Now, again, it's consequence, which that will drive the choice, but you can't unknow what we just talked about. There is always a choice. As a matter of fact, there are 5. And I am so thankful to have gone through my painful lesson. And there's more than one. That's a whole other podcast, right? Of all the different failures that I've experienced as a leader and in my personal life as well. But without those lessons, we wouldn't, and understanding the 5 choices, I wouldn't be able to be successful today and move forward much more fluidly whenever I hit an obstacle.
Yeah.
The pandemic is a great example for our company, because my team and our company, they're so sick of my 5 choice. They hear it all. So what choice are you in, John? So what choice are you in? They're like, oh, I know, I mean, right? So, but when the pandemic was real and we had to acknowledge it, of course we were in victim mentality, and we acknowledged that for one another, and we swam in it sometimes. However, because we all speak this language, we were also able to take turns and say, okay, so John, how long I'm going to let you be a victim? Just today. Okay. I'm not having a great day. That's great. Tomorrow, what are we going to do? Yep. Tomorrow I'm going to make change, but really, and hold each other to it. And because again, my team can't unknow it. Either. Right. So there's that accountability there.
And that's where I find that energy is so important, because being a victim is also a normal phase. It's a phase where you don't feel able to cope. Unconsciously, you don't feel able to cope. And so you fall into this victim. It's not my fault, or there is no issue, or it's someone else. But then when you have high energy, that's when you are able to get out also of the victim position. That's why I often tell CEOs and leaders that managing your energy is your number 1 job, because if you don't have energy, you're not able to grow and to face challenges.
I heard a quote. Actually, my daughter was watching something relatively awesome. And the quote was, you cannot heal if you don't reveal. And part of being a great leader is to reveal and sometimes be vulnerable. I know vulnerable is such a bingo word, right? Everybody says it. However, to be vulnerable is sometimes to say, hey, I'm being a victim right now as a leader, because I'm feeling things. We're not robots. And it's really hard to say that I don't know what to do, or I'm scared, or today I'm just not feeling it, and or whatever the thing is. And I'm not saying as a leader you should walk around every day and say that, no, the whole thing. But when it's there, and the team can sense it, just like animals can smell fear. And to just say, so today I'm not feeling it. I got you though. I've got your back. We're still a team. We're going to be great. Just want you to know this is how I'm showing up. There is a tension reduction with other humans when you are truthful in that way. And that's actually being stronger as a leader than weaker. And we've been taught the opposite.
Yeah.
I wish there was leadership school to teach all this good stuff, right? From when we come right out of the box. And sidebar, it's actually an improv technique. I pretended to be a comedian for 20 minutes, 25 years ago, which is to say, it was on the bucket list, right? So in improv class, that's rule number one, is to acknowledge the truth. So if you're on stage and you're just sucking wind, or you're just saying, you say I don't know what to say right now. And the audience will go, oh, thank God, because they know it. They already know. So to allow yourself to be vulnerable and go, I'm in victim state. Now, tomorrow I won't be, but right now that's what it will humanize you. There will be a tension reduction, and you will have trust. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to ask you also the question, because the 5 choices you're talking about for me are not opposite choices. Often, like being a victim, sometimes it's by accepting that you're feeling that way, that you will find the energy to then accept the situation, and then find the energy to change it and shift your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always opposing each other. And on the contrary, for change, for me, the first step before change is accepting a situation.
I think you said that very articulately also, because we put names to it now, these choices, but you're exactly right. It's not like you go, I am in an acceptance mode. I am now shifting right? It happens probably like that. And for sure, in my story, I probably went through every choice within milliseconds, boom, 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 like fireworks. Yeah. You're 100% right. And, you said something also, sometimes when that whole victim mentality, don't fight it sometimes. Mm-hmm. To your point, right? If you need to swim in it, listen, has there been a night when I ate ice cream right out of the carton and I'm watching Netflix until 2 a.m. and I've said it out loud, I'm going to be in victim mode today. This is as much energy as I have. I don't have the energy. I don't have the positive energy. So okay, approve it. It's okay, right? Don't fight it. Now, to your point also, you have to then stop, and maybe not consciously, but stop and go, how's this serving me? How's this working out for me? Okay, I'll do this for 2 days, but then I have to make a decision, because this is not who I want to be. This isn't the health that I want to be in, right? And all of the other things. But you make a really good point. They're complementary. They work together. There's a synergy. Yes.
Or maybe the decision you need to make when you feel like blaming and in this victim mode is to just be nice with yourself and manage your energy. And once your energy is back, it's almost automatically that you want to get out of that and want to do something about it.
Yes, exactly. Validate. That is excellent point. Excellent point. Love yourself. It's okay. We all go like this. Knowing it is 99% of it, I think, because how many people walk this planet and don't even know that there are choices, and don't know that there's such a thing as this victim mentality, this victim state for which we choose to be in. And I pity them. They're lost souls, right? They can't even acknowledge it, validate, and elevate up.
Yeah, that's hard because we're very solution oriented. And so we immediately want to do something to get the results that we want. But something I learned in coaching and I found very powerful is that sometimes when the other person is in the suffering, in the mess, in the negative emotions, sometimes they told us you have to keep the person there a little bit longer, because it's from that place that he or she will find the energy to get out of it. And if you get out of it too rapidly, well, maybe you will not have the transformation.
Mm-hmm. There's this thing called free will, and nobody can affect it. That's the one thing that we have complete control over. It's our own selves, right? And you cannot point your finger at a human being and say, change, if they're not ready to do it. You're exactly correct. So if a person needs to stay in that state for whatever then the worst thing that you can do is to rip them out of it. Right? It's all you can do is support, and you can't coach the uncoachable. So all we can do as coaches and leaders is to create an environment where people can thrive by making sure that they are safe, they are heard, asking the questions that need to be asked and all the things. But to your point, you cannot, the worst thing you could do is rip them out of it. Say, you're wrong, change now. And many leaders do it.
Yeah, and it's too fast, and then it's superficial, and it doesn't stick, the transformation. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this morning I love going for a walk and listening to podcasts or audibles. This morning I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, and he was telling that the suffering is in fact important, because it's from the suffering that you get your transformation moments, and that you realize, and now it's enough. So sometimes you need that part to be able to transform.
As parents, we are built, again, physically in our DNA to not let our children suffer. But they need to suffer so they'll grow and they'll learn and they'll change. And your employees are no different. Sometimes they need to suffer. And as much as we want to, some leaders don't give feedback because they are trying to protect these people from being hurt. And no, we have to know that the path that we're on is the right path, or we're not learning, we're not right. So we as leaders, our obligation sometimes is to allow our people to suffer, because to your point, it's from there that we grow and we thrive, right? So not easy. Not easy. That's a really good point. Really good point.
Not easy. And like you say, we have to create that safe environment and show that we care, so that the suffering is, of course, as not too long and as short as possible, but it's right. Necessary to be there as well.
Yes. And there's an art to that. There's an absolute art to, there really is. However, it's hard for parents and leaders to watch that, but that's part of the job. You wanted the job, this is part of the job.
It's really hard, because it's about letting go. And sometimes as a parent or as a leader, you see the solution for someone else.
Of course.
But it has to come from them, and we have to let go. And that's very hard.
It's so hard. That's another podcast. Again, that's a whole other conversation.
Exactly. But you were talking about feedback also, and that's a topic that I love, because I don't believe in the annual evaluations anymore. Everyone hates them. The leaders hate them. The employees hate them. And it's often like more a formal thing. I prefer the permanent feedback solution. And if you still want to do an annual evaluation and you both want to do it, that's fine. But I don't like the mandatory thing. But what I notice is, despite the fact that many leaders have taken many courses about feedback, they still find it very difficult to give feedback. So why is that, do you think?
Fear. It's all fear-based. And I was there, again, back to my initial story, when I was in human resources and I fell into that part of my career. I am so thankful, because I had no choice but to face my fear. And the fear could be a lot of things. Just afraid of conflict in general. People think giving feedback of any kind is conflict immediately. That's a limiting belief. That's a story we concocted for ourselves. Number one. Number two, a leader doesn't want to lose their status as a friend, perhaps. Guess what? You're not their friend. You are their boss. You are their lead. That is your obligation, or even their peer, right? Number three, just a fear of hurting somebody, of hurting somebody's feelings, when in fact, which we already talked about, if you don't give the feedback, then you're hurting them more, because that person is down the wrong path. It goes back to my story, where that very high level person told me that my behavior was, in his view, childish, which again, it had to do with pipe cleaners on a table, by the way. It was a kinesthetic device. But that's his perception. So because he gave me that feedback, I was able to shift and change and grow in the company. So it was still helpful, even though we could argue it wasn't provided in the ideal way. So that's the reason what holds back leaders from giving feedback. It's their own, whatever their personal motivation, they're afraid. That's really what it comes down to. And it's not easy all the time. I have been there. I understand. I empathize. It's not, but it is simple to be able to do it. And on the other side of it comes all of the positive. Now, if you are, get to your point, and I love how you said this, feedback should not be once a year. Okay, let's come into this cold, sterile office and I'm going to scare the bejeebas out of you. It should be in the moment. Hey, Murielle, come here for a second. I just want to, that was great. How did you feel that went? How you just handled your employee? Or Murielle, that was good. I really appreciated the way you presented that idea, whatever the thing is. Conversely, Murielle, come here for a second. How do you think that went? Yeah, exactly. So what could we have done better with that employee? Well, I kind of barked at him. Maybe I should have done. So can I offer you some steps on how to give that, whatever the thing is? Because should you do an annual? Probably. I'm an advocate in organizations and it documented and all the things that go along with it. But during that annual, the employee should never be surprised. It should start, hey, John, good to see you. So we've been talking all year. This isn't going to be, you can even say this won't be a surprise. How do you think the year went? Blah, blah, blah. Great. So let's walk through this whole thing. This is what we're going to continue to work on. So there's no surprises. That annual should just be a continuation of the conversations that you've been having throughout the entire year. I apologize. You asked me one question and I think I answered 7 in the whole conversation, but
it's okay. No, I also was thinking, because for me, it's still hard to give feedback. It's always been, I used to be the CEO of an organization and I could give feedback. And every time I did it, every time it was a wonderful conversation. But still, it was like the idea that I might disappoint someone was already paralyzing me up front. So I had to put a lot of energy and effort to do it. And then every time it went well. And I think it's because I've been educated. I was a good student. And as a good student, you do everything that is expected from you. You don't disappoint anyone. But when you give feedback, well, the person is disappointed at first, of course. First in himself or herself. So yeah, for me, it was a fear of disappointing.
And now, I hate to say this to everyone listening, but the way through that is time, is when you do it again and again and again and again, and you build up this confidence at that, in essence, you're not hurting the other person. You care. You're a beautiful, wonderful, loving person who doesn't want to hurt the other person. And it's just a mind shift. Again, it's shifting that perspective to say, I'm actually not hurting this person. They will be hurt, because nobody wants to know that they're not doing a great job or failing or missing expectations or whatever the thing is. But later, they will be thankful if I do it correctly, which I know without even knowing you 100%. I know that you did a great job of communicating that feedback. The point is you did it, right? And it takes time to build up that knowledge to walk in the room. The first time I ever terminated anyone, it took me 5 hours, because I was in so much pain for her. She was lovely and all the things, right? And it was for cause, so it was appropriate. And then I'm not necessarily proud of this, but 3 years later, it's a 5-minute conversation, right? Because it's not, I'm giving you this feedback. This is a stretch. This isn't really a feedback conversation. It's termination. It's different. But it was, we're here because of your behavior. My job is to communicate the ramifications and the feedback around that behavior. That's my job. Same is true with feedback, positive or constructive.
Yeah, and you can do both with love and with care. 100%.
100%. You're right.
Yeah. And Yeah, what I also noticed is people receiving feedback. And there what I learned is sometimes you might have the feeling that your feedback is not well received. That the person is in defensive mode. But then, like a week or 2 weeks or a month later, you see a change. And that's something I think we need to realize, that is, even if in the conversation the person is being protective, sometimes it also needs some time to land, especially with people that are very hard on themselves.
Yes.
They find it very hard also to accept feedback.
Yes. I found that the people who get the most offensive are those that didn't hear my why. What I mean by that is you have to tell the person why you're giving them this feedback. And I remember, it's not funny. I was in there was an employee who was dressing too provocatively. And to be honest, I had complaints, numerous in a day. So I did the thing. That was my responsibility. And I 100% did do we know why we're here? I don't know, very defensive. And I said, here's what I know about you. Your career is on the right path. And the feedback I'm getting around your performance is you're exceeding expectations. What we don't want is for you to be held back by perception or a story or whatnot. Well, you can't, and it was this and this and this and this. And it wasn't a long talk, because these talks don't need to be long. Again, this is the why. Here's what I've seen. Here's the feedback. And then here's the other critical part, why I feel like people get defensive, is because then you tell them how to solve their performance issue. Or in this case, buy a sweater, right? But because you tell them, a really big part of this is to ask. So what do you think we can do about this? Now it's your data. You're coming up with the solution. So when you walk out of the room, you might still be pissed and defensive and all the things. But to your point earlier, you will then cycle through and it's not about me. It's about you. You have all the tools now. We came up with the solution together. If you want to keep dressing like this, it's on you. The consequences then on you. I did my job, right? So it's again, I have had many a person, even physically, right? Fists up once, as a matter of fact. However, if I've done everything that I can do, then it's up to that person. And I can say that I gave them the gift that I needed to give them.
Yeah. Nice, really nice. So I think it was a nice conversation about choice, about failures that bring us often growth in the end, and about feedback. So I have one last question for you, because this is a podcast about rebel leaders with a heart. So I'm really curious to know, what is your rebel side? You've shown that you have a lot of heart in what you do, but what is your rebel side?
I think my rebel side, that is a fabulous question, is I learned it the hard way years ago, is when I say I don't know. To be honest with you, I think that's, and I do it a little bit more often than I probably should with our own team, but I think that's it. It's just say, gang, I don't really know what to do here. What do you think? And that, I think by definition is being a rebellion, because leaders, we don't do that. We don't do that. So I think proudly, that is my rebel side. What a great question.
Yeah,
really good question.
You can be proud of your rebel side, because for me, I don't know is the start of growing. And it also gives the opportunity to others to help you and to be part of something bigger. So, and it's not what most leaders do.
Agreed. Amen. My friend, let's change that. We'll change it.
Yeah, because we really need rebel leaders, because I believe we are coming at the end of a model. Everything is showing that we are at the end of a leadership model, and we have to embrace this new, more human leadership model.
Agreed. You and me, sister. We got it.
So where can people find you if they want to contact you, or if they want to contact your company? where can I find you?
The best way is rpcamerica.com. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the things under Tina Frey, Frey Clements also. But I would love to hear from all your listeners via our website. That would be fantastic. We welcome it.
Great. We will put the links in the show notes.
Super.
Well, it was really nice talking to you, Tina. And maybe we'll meet someday when I cross the ocean or you come to Europe. We could meet. That would be really nice. It was a nice conversation.
I feel it in my bones. That's going to happen. Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was a great chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
What a nice conversation. Thank you, Tina. And I hope you now can see how much strength you can get from failure, from feeling powerless or lost. It's very uncomfortable, of course, but that's where you can get the energy to really transform and then see the 5 choices you have, the 5 choices Tina talked about. You can choose and stay the victim, because then you can get a little bit of attention from the people around you, maybe. You can accept the situation, you can shift your perspective, you can change things, or you can quit. Now, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to it, leave me a review, because that would be really helpful. And I'll be there in 2 weeks with another great episode.